A wild and wacky adventure awaits as you take control of the flower golem, recruit a team of equally zany companions, and help stop the evil plans of the Ember Empire. But is this Paper Mario-inspired game half-baked, or does it rise to the occasion? My name is Kodiak, this is Legacy Gaming, and there are plenty more puns where that came from, friends. This is my brutally honest review of Wild Art's new game, Born of Bread. Born of Bread was easily one of our low-key, most anticipated games of 2023. One look at the trailer and you can tell Wild Art Studios is trying to tap into something wacky and wonderful. The game is very much designed like the Paper Mario series, with a lot of the systems and stylings modeled after those games. But Born of Bread is absolutely a new adventure, and however long it takes me, I'm going to try and bring you up to speed on all its loafy goodness. In a single-player, narrative-driven adventure game like this, story matters. And while it's often not the thing I care most about with my games, it's certainly a bigger factor here. Born of Bread never takes itself too seriously, and almost everything, even the semi-serious moments, are laced with comedy. You play as Loaf, a magical bread boy formed when Papa Baker attempts a new recipe to impress the Queen. Almost immediately, you're thrust into chaos as you are confronted by the Queen, a less than regal figure, as well as the Ember Empire, led by Jester and his posse of cronies. Calamity ensues, you're blasted out of the castle in very Mario-esque fashion, and your adventure starts deep in the forest of the Root. From this point on, where you go and what you do is really up to you, but of course you are limited based on your progression in the main story. Whether you're focused on the main quest or side content, of which there is a decent amount, you'll meet a number of colorful characters, some of which are direct pop culture references. I'll admit, running into characters like Romeo and Juliet and the guys from The Office felt out of place, but again, you can't take these games too seriously. If you start trying to use logic to explain why something in a game like this is happening, well then this clearly isn't the game for you. What I most enjoyed about the game's story is just how dynamic each of the characters are. There's no voice acting, so all of that personality of each character has to come through with their design, animations, and the narrative text, and I enjoyed the game immensely on that front. Maybe I'm just at the perfect age to appreciate a game like Born of Bread. I'm in my early 30s, have a family, and the sheer volume of puns and dad jokes never failed to elicit a small chuckle. It was just good, campy fun, and after an absolute banner year of long and intense games, I'm okay with some light, harmless humor. The story itself is fine. It's not going to win any awards, but it's what you would expect in a game like this. A group of bad guys wants to control the Sunstones and reclaim their lost empire, but Loaf and the companions he makes along the way are there at every turn to try and foil their evil plot. There are a couple small twists and turns, and you even get to experience brief story moments from the bad guy's perspective a few times, which I thought was a nice twist. What was incredibly unclear going into the game's release was exactly how the adventure and action parts of the game would play out. In all honesty, the trailers were so frantic that it was nearly impossible to break apart the various elements and understand what type of game Born of Bread actually is. But after going hands-on, it's much clearer. First and foremost, Born of Bread is an adventure game. Your 2D character will have to navigate a 3D world, and that involves a combination of traversal, platforming, and puzzle solving. It's all fairly light, but the nature of the 3D world definitely had me turned around on more than one occasion. There were times I thought I had scoured throughout every corner of a zone, only to realize I was just a few steps away from a solution I couldn't see because of the fixed 3D camera. What I did enjoy more than simply running around trying to find my next pathway was the actual platforming elements, which I've always enjoyed in games like this. In my mind, it harkens back to the N64 era of adventure games where platforming was just part of the equation, not a defining feature, but woven into every aspect of moving around the world. The team does a good job weaving in a couple new ideas here and there, one of which being the red butterfly tree, which, when attacked, will pick you up and fly you a short distance away. Other instances where you need to use your companion's special abilities to open up new pathways, and it's small ideas like this that help the experience feel uniquely its own. Much like the games it's inspired by, Born of Bread does try and sneak in the occasional secret. It's often something simple, like finding a hidden pathway and using a companion to create an opening, but that leads to something like a new weapon which Loaf can equip and build out his combat kit. Where things get really interesting, however, is with the game's combat, which I found to be the absolute best part about the game from a systems perspective. By design, Loaf is always required to fight, but you can also assign one of his companions to enter battle. Each of the various allies has their own charm, bringing to battle a unique moveset. Characters like Yagi use fire and psychic attacks, which play into the game's rock, paper, scissors style combat system. Loaf's abilities, however, are dictated by the weapons that he has equipped in a grid style system. Each weapon is tied to a different attack, and the more you have placed within the grid, the more types of attacks Loaf has access to. Now on the flip side, you'll need to unlock various skills for your companions using skill points you collect throughout your adventure. Each companion has 4 tiers of skills with multiple options within each tier, so you'll have to allocate your points wisely if you want Loaf and a companion to synergize. What I actually enjoyed most about the combat was the various minigames tied to the execution of each attack. Simple maneuvers required a single button press, timed at the right moment, while other, more complicated skills used a combination of sequencing and timing to execute. These minigames never felt cumbersome, mainly because of how fast you can work through them. Each skill might have a different minigame attached to it, and as you're changing up your skills, it adds an extra layer of proficiency to the overall combat experience that I personally enjoyed. The team also tried to weave in a strange social element to the combat. Your saver, a special companion named Dub, that allows you to save the game at key points in your adventure, will sit in the background during combat, quote-unquote, live streaming the event. In the top right, you can pull down the chat window, see how your actions influence the crowd, and quite honestly, I found this to be one of the stranger elements of the game. I almost immediately hid the chat as the incessant babbling got to be too much for me, and I'll be honest with you guys, once hidden, I never thought twice about the system. I did see numbers flying up and down a bit, but it was just a system I felt was completely unnecessary. Now getting back on track though, the game also utilizes cards to signify different aspects of the combat. There's no mystery here. These are just different categories you can employ during your turn, such as attack, defend, item, special, and flee. There's no limit to how often you can use each card, it's just a way to set up the various aspects of the combat. What is cool though is that the characters on the cards are all heroes that you meet within the game. As a wannabe hero yourself, you start off idolizing them, but quickly realize you're just as, if not more capable than all of the heroes that you meet. Your journey will take you across multiple zones, and they're all distinctly different with their own unique aesthetic, but also a lineup of enemies. I mentioned that rock, paper, scissors style system before, and I really wish the game had a system that helped the player decipher that mid-combat. If you look at the poster at the back of the Savers Guild, you get an idea of how the system works, what types of attacks are strong or weak versus other types of attacks. But once you're in combat, there's no quality of life feature that really helps you navigate that system. It wouldn't be so bad if it was as simple as water beats fire, but there are some additional types of attacks that are unique to Born of Bread that definitely left me a bit confused on more than one occasion. Luckily, I never found that my lack of knowledge really ever held back the combat experience. The random enemies you fight in the world are purely nuisance and just provide you with a way to level up your team, while the more memorable fights offered enough of a challenge that I felt like I was accomplishing something. Nothing was ever really too hard, but again, you have to think back to the type of game Born of Bread is and what it's modeled after. Think about Paper Mario. That game was never that hard either, and if you think about who might be playing this type of game, maybe younger kids or adults who want a shot of nostalgia, and yeah, it makes a whole lot of sense why Born of Bread isn't that challenging. I said it before and I will say it again, 2023 has been a wild ride for gaming, and quite honestly, Born of Bread is a really solid adventure if you just want something lighthearted and easy to play. Wild Art Studio is small, and as we've talked about in a number of other reviews, we want to support indie developers making new and interesting games, and that's exactly the case with Born of Bread. If you're looking for something to sink around 15 to 20 hours into, this is the perfect game for you. It won't tax your mental capacity, its combat is unique and accessible, and the overall tone of just about everything, especially in the dialogue, is witty and charming. The game is solid from top to bottom, and while it doesn't innovate on too many fronts, it certainly won me over with its charm, wit, and interesting take on the adventure action genre. Again, if you're a fan of games like Paper Mario, Bug Fables, or even something like South Park: The Stick of Truth, you'll absolutely love Born of Bread. This is a great game to pick up and play on the Switch if you're traveling over the holiday season, but it's also available on PC, Xbox, and PlayStation 5. So there you have it, our brutally honest review of Born of Bread. As always, if you want more reviews that shoot straight from the hip, then you already know what to do. Hit that thumbs up and consider subscribing. Of course, you can also join us on Discord if you want to hang out with the team, talk about great games, and enter for your chance to win tons of free giveaways going on all the time. That link, as always, is below. My name is Kodiak, and from everyone here at Legacy Gaming, thanks for watching, and play on.